Okay. Um, Rahu, or North Node in the sixth house. Um, so this creates someone who wants to work all the time. Um, that's a big part of it. Someone who wants to produce. It's also someone who really wants to see results from their work. Which, probably anyone wants to see results from their work, but someone who is really obsessed with, like, what is this doing? What is it accomplishing? It's probably a good placement all in all. Can make one have delusions of grandeur a lot, which, I think we live in a time where certain things just kind of are sort of common. Like, a lot of my friends have this similar thing of like everyone wants to be internet famous, for example, or everyone wants to be, yeah, a lot of people in my generation really want to be famous. Probably one of the generational planets is responsible for that or something. I don't know. Anyways, of course the narrative of the times is critical, but yeah, I think ego can be really wrapped up in one's work. That can happen, but Rahu, like Sun is ego, but it's not necessarily in a bad way. Mars is going to be more the, sort of the bad take on ego, even though it's more like the expression of it. It's more of like in the mindset of almost like frenzy or needing to do something, or, uh, deprivation or just want. Very, very difficult uh, to shake once. Takes some control over one's material senses. I suppose there's probably, I feel this that there, now that I talked about Mars so much, that there's some work for me to do with Mars, that because of my yogic disposition, I can get something, I can find something better out of Mars. So I'll have to discover that. But Rahu, okay, like, people say things like the false ego about Saturn. There's delusion to it. There's a lot of things, because Rahu is the bad guy. He is the villain of the chart in a lot of ways. But at the same, that's not exactly a good enough description, because he also is protecting the Earth. He's very pro-Earth. He's actually, activism can be seen through Rahu. I heard this from Kapil Raj, but doing some work with Rahu, I've seen it. I remember seeing a lot of people with, like, some people having that the influence of Rahu very strongly, because once you do astrology, once you're interested in these things, it's like certain things just in the nature are unwrapped to you. Yeah, so activism, and Rahu, Mars is very much a material thing of, oh, I've got to get the next thing, I've got to, alright, oof, it's hard to describe the difference between Mars, between, Nurgle and Rahu. I'm saying Nurgle because Mars really comes through as Nurgle for me. Kartikeya is a much more reserved and yogic Mars than Nurgle, but I feel the influence of Nurgle in my life is sort of antagonistically towards me. Which is funny, because Kartikeya and Nurgle, when I see them on the astral plane, look practically nothing alike. yeah, Mars is really this drive, like, it's people that are going to fight each other or something. Um, it's material lust in a lot of ways. Um, Rahu is far more intellectual. That's one thing. It's far more, um, it's not even in the id, in the unconscious desires. It's really a particular, it's pure obsession. It's obsession that's maybe not even coming from the person. Um, and that energy is so particular because the moon, the lunar delusions are always okay. You see the thing, but there's just there's some nuances lacking. That's a weak moon, a moon that's like, say someone was born on a new moon. Um, the moon is darkened, so there's some lack of perspective, perhaps, or there could be a lot of manifestations of it, and probably a new moon if someone's born on a new moon. New moon doesn't New moon can mean ignorance. New moon can also just mean having to release something, or there's a lot to it. But in general, someone born on a full moon or like waxing gibbous moon or something like that is going to be, they're going to have a more powerful mind than someone else, who does have a different moon. And of course, the houses are important. Um, there's certain houses that moon doesn't do well in. So I'm piecing through this because basically Rahu and Ketu. Rahu is where you're like, if you have Rahu in sixth house of work, that's probably your career, or something with the minor opus is almost like the magnum opus. Like there's a little bit of that. Like the minor opus is going towards something big. Or opus minor rather. And this is where Rahu, I'm comparing Rahu to different things because Rahu is just such a complex energy, and but it's as complex as people are, I think. We all have different things we want in life. I will say one thing that I have noticed with Rahu is if you aren't doing, like, to be thelemic about it, like your true will, if you're not doing what you need to do in this world, you'll get bad effects of Rahu. You'll get delusion, but if you're doing what you need to do, if you're being the person you need to be in this world, if you won't really get that. Also, Vedically, I understood Rahu as an ultimate villain, which practically he is. But I've started to see more of the benevolent energy of Rahu. I don't think it's a delusion. It's like, I do wonder too, because there have been some changes in the iconography of different gods, like Rahu. Rahu is now understood to be like the dragon's head, when before I think he was more like a lion. Other times he's shown as like just a very human-looking demon, with just almost more like, as I would understand, a Rakshasa to look, even though he's never. There's just some inconsistencies, I think, in Hindu iconography. But I think things sometimes do change. Like I think, like in Babylonian astrology, Virgo is basically Venus, but now Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And I felt, when I learned this, I felt into it, and I just feel like there's some new truth to Mercury going towards Mercury being Lord of Virgo, instead of Virgo being more related to Venus, to Astarte or Ishtar or whatever, whichever name depending on the culture. So that's another thing, is I think Rahu is one. Okay, every god, every planet, it depends on your relationship with the planet. Rahu, it's with other planets you can squeeze a little bit of a different manifestation out of it by like, okay, you could, let's say you do planetary workings based off of you know, Mars, Aries, and then you change, and because that's very much Prostrudo almost, or it's a very vital, visceral energy. Whereas, you know, if you do Kartikeya, okay, it's still kind of similar, but it'll be a different energy. I think Kartikeya, he has a sharpness to him, but he's not the Kartikeya, at least in my encounters with him, with deity work. He doesn't have a stupid energy, whereas Aries is known almost to have like, yeah, he's kind of stupid. Or I shouldn't. It's not exactly stupid, but his whole thing is that drive, and that's all that's what he has. He has drive. He doesn't. He's not a big strategist. He's not the strategies outside of the compass of Mars, but I mean, even like Venus would be military strategy, even because like Aphrodite is also a god of war, and Astarte and Ishtar, it's more of a, and then that makes me question like what is Athena? Is Athena based on a planet? I'd have to look into that, but yeah, with Rahu, I don't know if there's mythology around it in the West. I suppose there is, but yeah, Rahu, like, it's a very Asteric energy, and this is another thing actually. I was just realizing that this connects here is that Astra doesn't mean exactly the same as demon. So Astra Astra wants to destroy the order, but that doesn't mean it wants to destroy the nature per se. So yeah, Rahu is perhaps wanting to he's wanting to empower the matter over the spirit, which reminds me of some Rosicrucian material about Ahriman, who I consider to be the same as Rahu. So I guess I'm trying to make the statement that, or make the point that understanding the mythology behind these things is really, really important. Yeah. Rahu expands wherever he is, and that so yeah, in the sixth house of work, like I said, someone will want to work a lot, but it's not just a simple expansion. It's a very comprehensive expansion. So they'll want to work more. They want to do planning of the work. Like the whole life could be about the work. I think this is another test I've learned about Rahu is, and I think actually talking about the sixth house with Rahu being in the sixth house, this is so interesting. This is so pertinent because Rahu is about the life's work, or about, you know, the direction one wants to go with their life, the point of life almost, something like that. He represents the future, and Ketu represents the past. But I think also having a detachment, because, you know, some people are spiritual or into esoterics, and they're very much about like becoming a complete person to do some tikkun olam, or, you know, some very grand, big ticket, esoteric, basically goal, and I think there's a point of meeting goals and trying to do something bigger, and there's a point of being relaxed and not being married to the goal, not making the goal your everything, because the soul is bigger than a lot of things. The soul is bigger than one's tikkun olam. Like, I think on a spiritual level, you can even get to the point where you're very spiritually and esoterically just in the hamster wheel of self-improvement. And it's like, but what are you improving for? What if there's nothing to improve for? What if all of this is just an experience, and you get to have it. I'm not saying that, you know, we don't have something individual in us that makes us special, or like I'm big into starseed stuff. I think that we're all part of, like, you know, different alien. A lot of us, at least, like something like 40 to 60% of us are souls from other worlds that, you know, have some kind of history and probably have some kind of larger goals. But you know, thinking that you have to produce certain results to make it, to satisfy some higher spiritual path. Spirituality doesn't need your like the universe, all these things. You know, God doesn't need your participation to create a new universe. He's just gonna do it. And, you know, I don't want to be discouraging or anything on that. It's just the truth, you know. Like let's say it like this way: the Galactic Federation doesn't need anyone to continue operating. They don't need your donation to pay the light bill. You know, that's not how things work in angelic realms. It just isn't. And and trusting the process, like, there's infinite good in trusting the process. Feeling that you're already enough, knowing that the power is what's already within you, being able to relax into your own divinity, etc., etc. And it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to work to then do something. And it's just like, I remember back when I was in the Protestant church, there's a lot of talk about, oh, make sure you're not doing a works-based salvation, because you can trick yourself and be doing a works-based salvation without even really realizing it. So you want to work out of something in your heart rather than, you know, just the feeling of it coming organically out from you, than trying to do something to tick a box. And yet, if you're not doing certain things, it's seen as weird. So the society of it creates a bit of a catch-22. But for me, it was like that, but especially because I just wasn't into it. I didn't like it that much. It wasn't sensible to me, and I think I think there's a couple. But I think it's funny because, you know, if you want to get something somewhere spiritually, you have to do the work. You have to do some effort, right? But you're not really required to. It's very voluntary, and I think, you know, without having something you want to do, existence is just boring. But understand that doing something, you know, maybe some people like me, I've met a few people like me that have that astral projection. I think anyone who has spiritual ambition should astral project. There's a few things like that, but there's some people that are keeping up a lot of devotion and discipline, and for what? But it depends, you know. I mean, everything one does spiritually and magically has some effect. It's doing something. Perhaps some people are just unrefined, and, you know, their spiritual self, and they need to do the work to elevate themselves. Yeah, I don't know. So I guess I don't want to judge people's spiritual work too much. But I think this is one challenge I've seen with Rahu, is like, especially with the 6th house of work. Probably you would see this in 11th house, 10th and 11th house as well, especially 11th house, of like yeah, maybe this probably doesn't fit as much with 6th house, but no, it would, because it's like the future, and it's like the goal of the soul or whatever, to some extent. Which, there's a lot of signifiers in the chart of this sort of thing. I just learned recently that Jupiter is the soul of the chart, which I don't actually know what that means completely. I mean, I'd felt something like that anyways, but I still don't know what it means. Which is, I think, a good thing to understand in Magic. If there's not a few things you don't understand already on your horizon, then you're probably just stagnant. Um, Not even that. Like, you should know what you don't know, and if you know everything, you probably just don't know what you don't know. It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. But I mean, even people who are pretty smart will still not know what they don't know. Some people get like a degree in something, and then they're like, "Oh, I got the degree, so I know everything now," or something. I don't know. Haven't seen that much though. Uh, Typically, it's people that know, like, have a very amateurish level of knowledge about things that will be so convinced that they pretty much know most everything. Um, yeah. So, yeah, actually, just to recap, one thing, or not to recap, actually I'll talk about a different dimension of it, that Rahu can also be occult, like occult knowledge and occult powers can be seen with Rahu. So sixth house could also be someone is working with secrets, or I suppose you could see a spiritualist to some extent, or a magician, and from this, although typically you wouldn't. I mean, you could see a magician from this, as well as you could see someone who is on YouTube with who just cursing constantly, because you can see profanity from Rahu, especially if Rahu is conjunct with Mercury. So, like if someone had a Mercury Rahu conjunction in sixth house, and they had a YouTube channel, and they had like, or maybe they'd be a streamer and they'd just be cursing and uh, while they're playing video games or something, like maybe a Let's Play channel with horror or something, that could make some sense. So it's not necessarily, Rahu is one of these ones where like okay, Rahu Mercury conjunction, it could be they talk about occult dark things that are viewed as taboo to others, or they could just be cursing a lot and just talking about things that are taboo, that are just simply taboo. They're not interesting even. So, you know, um, yeah, probably that would have something to do with the ascendant. Like maybe a Taurus ascendant would be more of a crass, uh, just gross person. So I think I'm gonna stop talking about Rahu now. There's more to talk about him, I think, but I guess I'm trying to offer a taste of how much can be going on with Rahu, and I think Rahu is one of these. Just to talk about him as a placement, or talk about him as a planet, even though, yeah, he's a shadow planet. So there's some. I would say there's some debate whether he exists as a physical object or not. It says in Mahabharata he does exist as a physical object, so I'm just gonna go with that. But who knows? He's also said to cause eclipses. That's another thing. So yeah, Rahu. I'm gonna stop talking about him now though, because I meant to display with Rahu how one thing can be interrelated with other things, and like on one person, oh, you should go into law enforcement. On another person, it might be, oh, this person's a serial killer. Rahu is one of these placements where you can start to see where things have a lot of variability. And you could do that with any placement, but Rahu is really one that it's not even, because with the different planets, it's important to be in conversation with the planets themselves. You know, because on a subtle level, when an astrologer is looking at a chart, they're sort of asking the planet, like, okay, what's your point here? What's the message that's coming through to me through the placements? What's the will of the planet? What's the chains of the planet on me from the placement? What does it mean? But with Rahu, it's like someone can be a beggar on the street, and they can change and be, you know, a billionaire. I mean, it's not. We don't have such an open world now. Like, okay, you know, American propaganda. You know, anyone can become a billionaire overnight. I think we all know that's not true by now. But in general, some dramatic changes of fortune can be gotten or perceived through Rahu in different cases. Changes in fortune, changes in consciousness. It's a big wild card. So that's something I want to convey here. Alright, moving on, Ketu. Ketu, first thing is Ketu is headless. Ketu in 6th house. Okay, I haven't seen this placement before, so I'm just gonna go complete intuition, which is what I do anyways. I mean, even when I see someone's chart, I'm considering it through my intuition, and that's helpful. So to feel like I need to grade this through experience like that is there's kind of no point for me to be almost like deprecating myself, my skills in this arena for that, because, you know, it almost makes no difference. I'm ultimately in conversation with the planet more than the person, which I think is a perfect introduction, a perfect sort of like prologue to Ketu, because Ketu's headlessness, which is actually Ketu is the skill in astrology can be seen through Ketu. So someone should be headless. Someone should, you know, be a little bit more light in there, have more of a light ego, or perhaps no ego, or be able to just kind of go with the flow, things like that. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm going with the flow. I did the other 8 planets, and now it's time for Ketu. And Ketu is speaking to me in this case, and I'll just say it because it's what's coming. That is very much the energy of Ketu. Ketu is also very Aquarian. Ketu is also very Aquarian and weird. I'm gonna say it. So, Rahu and Ketu. Rahu is thought to be sort of, what's the word? Corresponded to Taurus. I think the best view of it is that Rahu and Venus are friends, so he's strong in Taurus, and then Ketu is very Aquarian, and he's strong in Aquarius. It's not that they rule the house; it's just simply they're strong there. So to understand that, perhaps someone's work who has Ketu in the 6th house would have a very weird job or unusual job. Gig work, for example, could come under this, could be seen through this, because sometimes you can have a great day and you can make, you know, $60 in an hour, and sometimes, you know, you spend the whole day and don't get much or something. You know, very, very unusual work, or someone who works irregularly. So yeah, gig work could be seen through this, maybe. Um, Probably the biggest thing. Ketu could also mean that someone just doesn't work, that they don't care about working, that in order to get work done, that they need to really just not care about it, type thing. Also, I think the original video, the premise was, if you have a block and you feel unmotivated in work, what can you do to get past that? With Rahu, it's probably making an obsession, and with Ketu, it's probably not caring about it, or just simply not doing it. I forgot the original premise. Just Ketu in sixth house could also mean astrology. That one is an astrologer. I think also you could see asceticism through that. So like maybe someone would be like a monk or something, or perhaps it would be like someone would have to do ascetic practices in order to do the work that they need to do. So like some kings would be practically monks on the side, and that really helped them to have a spiritual connection and make decisions and be. I think some of it is just being confident in your decision making. Like in my own life, because I've taken some. My son's throwing dirt at me. I think sometimes in my own life, I've seen where like I use some religious sort of thought process or explanation or sort of justification before the fact, and just in my planning and when I'm thinking about things like, oh, it should be done this way. Not dogmatically, but just understanding that there's a higher energy behind it. And I think, yeah, it's like, without the religious justification, with the thing of work just the same as I would have wanted it to, anyways. Maybe. I think most of the time, though, how do you have the energy to keep up something? Where do you get the will? Where do you find that motivation to keep you going on and on? And I think sometimes, yeah, you can get that motivation from the divine energy. But that motivation, that's life force. A lot of people are going to seminars and stuff to find that life force, but ultimately that comes from somewhere. It's yeah, a lot of people are looking for, where are they going to find the motivation. I think this is something that I find very unfortunate from an esoteric perspective, is that it's not so much, what mentally will press the right button for you. A lot of people don't have, I mean, for me, for a long time, I just didn't have the energy. Just the literally my fund of life force that I had at any given time was too low for me to accomplish anything. Even simple things. I could do basically the things I needed to do, or that I felt like I really needed to, stay sane or take care of my son properly or whatever. And besides that, I haven't, had a lot of the willpower, and some of that good diet can help a lot. But also being like having like a lot of neuroticism or like psychosomatic issues. A lot of people are starved spiritually, and there are atheists who are actually spiritually quite rich, because they have a connection to something, because it doesn't have to be a traditional religion. It can even be an ideology. I've seen that when I was around communists. There's a lot of communists who had a relatively strong will, Within the covenants of communism, within the substance, the substance of what communism actually is, as far as they, connected to it. But you can see the same pattern with religions, because all religion is just, um, like with ideologies, it's a lot of mental inspiration, but that's also spiritual. Um, it's not as powerful as, it depends. Actually, a lot of times, more atheistic currents of this thing can be more powerful, more obviously powerful, at least. But, you know, um, I think there's some problematic things as well there. So, this thing with Ketu is pretty good to talk about this, because a lot of people have this issue anyways. People are eating terrible diets these days, and having their heads filled with all kinds of complete nonsense in the public education system, through TV. We live in a time where everything is poisonous. We don't even know half of what all the plastics we're taking into our body are doing to us. But I think bad information and bad knowledge is probably even more harmful. Like, for example, I see a lot of these motivational speakers, and there's some that I've liked in the past. No, you watch one motivational speaker one time on YouTube, and the next thing you know, your entire For You page is motivational speakers. And but so there's a big push for that sort of thing now. It's basically just gaslighting people that, if only they could just, get out of bed at 7 a.m. every day, and do this and do that and do the other thing, and just make their whole life about some kind of, personalized capitalistic production, that then they'd be happy, that then they would get out of their funk and find the good life. And that's just not true at all. That's a capitalistic lie. This system has left a lot of people behind, and the truth is, once the system has left you behind, you're an orphan. And most people will find their happiness in life through family, but the state is a family. And capitalism, the parents are off on vacation, you broke your leg and need someone to come pick you up and take you to the hospital, but they're drunk. Yeah, the parents are drunk and at another country on vacation, and it's like, who's taking care of the kids? That's my view of capitalism. Like, the resistance to basic social programs, to me, is just the state not wanting to take care of its children, of the citizens, and wanting to, it's telling the children to take care of themselves, because the regular people, whatever age, are the children of the state. They are under the care of the state. And to pretend like that's not the case, that everyone needs to protect themselves and be their own caretaker, meanwhile paying taxes and whatever. Okay, so your parents have a house that you're allowed to stay in, but the children need things, right? So, and then, there's some religious craze, some spiritual craze that comes out of this abandonment by the father society. But yeah, I think getting religious or ideological can help with this can help with Ketu. Also, another thing is, if you have back to Rahu in 6th house, if Rahu in 6th house gives someone trouble, as it often can, you want to look at Ketu's placement. Wherever Rahu is, if Rahu gives you trouble, you have to look at Ketu's placement and feed Ketu. And because they're connected, Ketu is the body of Rahu, and by feeding, Rahu will eat and eat and eat and never be satisfied. To satisfy Rahu, you have to look at Ketu, and you have to feed Ketu. Because it's the body, so the body can actually digest. The body doesn't enjoy eating because it can't taste the food because it's just a body. And Rahu is the head. So you feed the body and the head won't want anymore. But it can be challenging. So I think that's the last thing to tell about Ketu. And I think it's important. I'm glad I mentioned, or I think the reason that I mentioned all this stuff about religion and being lost and whatnot, that's very pertinent to Ketu. I think there's an element of lostness just very intrinsically to Ketu's, sort of in what he is as a planet. He's the discarded body of Rahu practically. I would also connect Ketu to Abraxas. So there's an element of pure chaos with Ketu. So that's another thing to keep in mind with him. Well, yeah, I think that's all I really care. That's all I'm feeling to say at the moment. Besides maybe what? Yeah, just a little bit of I guess I wanted to give a compass of spirituality and how that connects to motivation, because that's big with Ketu. Because if you don't feed your body, you're not going to be motivated because you won't have the energy. But this is true also spiritually and astrologically. So, anyways.